Present.
And myself.
All right. First item is approval of the agenda. We had a late addition, so we need to add a number 3 for graduation, for the senior graduation for the high school, the consent agenda. So if I can just get a motion to add that and approve the consent agenda, or approve the agenda, sorry.
I'll move this, Scott. I'll move to add the graduation 2020 request to the consent agenda.
This is Brian. I'll second.
And moved and seconded. Laura, can you call the roll?
Constantinescu.
Here.
Cramer.
Yes.
Lauridsen.
Yes.
Pitts.
Yes.
Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now approval of the agenda as amended.
So I had a question about the 1347 request for alcohol application.
Mm-hmm.
It mentioned it mentioned the physical address of 1515 High Street, Track B. Is that a physical address that you can actually get a liquor license for?
That's the closest they could get, and that's what was approved by the state because it's on the
Gotcha.
track.
Okay.
That was part of the name. May I speak, Casey?
Yes.
That was part of why the application was redone, because of that address change. You
Okay.
needed to add Track B so that it would meet the guidelines of the state.
That answers my question. Thanks.
And now on the graduation 2020, Brent Brittingham sent 2 options, Plan A and Plan B, for council to consider. Lynn, do you see Brant?
Yes, he's in here.
Okay. So he is available for questions.
My personal opinion on that, guys, is I'd rather the school choose. I'm open to, whatever they think's good for the seniors. This is so unprecedented that, I feel like we let them choose and whatever's best for their setup.
The way I understood it, reading it, was they preferred option A, the graduation on the bricks. Is that correct?
Laura, did they prefer option A, the graduation on the bricks?
Yes, I'm sorry. Susan's audio was distorted. Yes, option A was one of the first option that he talked about doing, and working with Mike Patrick and Glenn and I on all of this. So yes.
Casey,
He would like to do whatever's easiest for the city.
Hey, Casey, this is Brent Brittingham. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Normally I can see myself and I can't see myself. Just can I have a few minutes real quick just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background information? So obviously, that we're not in school, and so we are looking at an alternate form of graduation. Things are starting to pop up in other states and so forth, and so we're starting to obviously entertain that idea. I wanted to wait as long as I could to try to have a traditional graduation in our high school, but that just looks less and less likely. And so I appreciate you guys letting me, speak and so forth and present just a couple ideas. The biggest thing is when I had talked to Mike Patrick the other day, and Laura was present, just, to get the ball rolling and so forth. He was the one that kind of suggested maybe a couple options. I think in an ideal scenario, we would be able to do something downtown, on the brick, that would be maybe a little more personable, where I want to have, imagine a car show, but the students are the cars. And so if you imagine like some of the car shows that we've had downtown, and basically where the cars are backed in. Well, that's where a student would be, in essence, standing, in their cap and gown and so forth. And then the actual parade, for lack of better terms, would be the parents in cars with grandparents and so forth. And they would be the ones driving by. I think I prefer this or something along these lines because I think it's a little more personable versus what you might have seen around the state is, the students are in the cars, but I kind of got a glimpse of this as we handed out cap and gowns the other day. And all you can really see is just what you can see in the car, meaning you couldn't see, you can't see the students standing there in their cap and gown. And certainly we would like to do some other things. And I have some other ideas, but as Laura pointed out, I either tried to get something to you so that we could kind of get the ball rolling or wait until the 19th. And I didn't want to wait. But that's it in a nutshell. I mean, we have approximately 90 graduates who would have to be 6 feet apart on either side of the road. So I think we need about the length of a football field. But Mike Patrick take that utensil or the utility or the tool that they use and actually go mark it off someday, depending on what you guys thought. And in the end, I did want to get, I don't know. I appreciate the willingness to do what we want, but I also wanted some feedback from all of you to, as to what your thoughts or what might be best. Is High Street best? I originally spelled out the length on 8th Street. But in the end, any feedback that you guys might think as to what might make this best for our seniors. And I hope this is a one-time request for you all. So I hope that makes sense. I did hear from, there's a person of contact with Douglas County who I also had to submit stuff to. And the reality is her supervisor could, in the end, nix the whole deal. Obviously, the virus is dictating a little bit as to when we can have this. But phase 3 would start June 1st, I'm sorry, and that's the earliest in which we would have something. I would like to have it the week of June 1st through the 7th. But again, we are at the mercy of what county health would tell us. So obviously, they could, like I said, nix anything we choose to do, but we've got to start the conversation. So that's all I needed. I appreciate all of your time. So feedback from any of you would be appreciated, or any thoughts, Casey, or any of you. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Brant. Again, I'll just reiterate, I'm okay just approving it and letting the school decide how and when they want to do this, but it's at the council's discretion.
The only thing, I think it's a great idea. I support it. The only thing I would say is that we balanced it against any other events that we want to steer clear of. I'm assuming we check calendar on that.
Yeah, pretty much everything's been pushed off. Pretty much from mid-June and earlier that I know of has been pushed farther back. Right. The only thing that would have been close to would have been the car show, but they pushed that not the car show, the barbecue on the bricks, but that's been pushed to August at this point.
Yeah. I'm good with it. Whatever they want to do.
Okay. And we'll certainly, I will, as we gather information and finalize plans, and as I meet with the senior class, I will relay all information to Laura so that she can have it at her disposal to get to you all, or as I continue to have conversations with Mike Patrick as to other things that need to be done, I will certainly communicate all of that so that you guys are in the loop.
Okay. Thank you, Brant.
Thank you. Anything else from me?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You also. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I
Second.
second it.
No, Julian.
Julie seconded it. Laura, can you
Yes.
call the roll?
Constantinescu,
Yes.
Cramer,
Yes.
Lauridsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, Laura, do we have any public comments that were emailed in?
We do not.
Okay. No special reports. So under old business, item number 1 is the resolution official publication for the city. We've spoken about this prior to move the official publication to the city website. So that's why it's on the agenda. Is there any further discussion or questions on that? All right. Not, I will entertain a motion.
This is Julie. I move we approve resolution 2020-10, the official publication.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Susan. Laura, can you call the roll?
Yes. Constantinescu,
Yes.
Cramer,
Yes.
Lauridsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item under old business is the Sullivan Square benches. Brian, I'm going to let you kind of kick this one off if you'd like.
Okay. I'd requested the mayor put this on the agenda, and at the time I thought we would have all 5 designs for our mural benches that are going to go into Sullivan Square. From our artists and our groups, we need a little bit more time to get that together, but hopefully you see in your packet, or it was in an email, looks like it's in my packet, a picture of the back of the bench that we're looking at. We're not quite sure if it'll be that size or a little bit smaller. We've been batting that around with the artists, but I hope here in the next, hopefully by next meeting, to get those designs back to the mayor so they can be in the agenda.
Okay, so we don't need an action item then tonight.
No, we have the themes for each bench, but we don't have the actual drawn out design. We wanted to be able to show everybody the actual designs.
Okay. So we
So,
might as well hold off in
Right.
discussion until we have those, and then we'll.
okay,
Hey, Brian, I thought that was actually the social distancing version.
right. You know, I
But
think the
two
mayor
trees
sent
on
me
the
that
end.
picture. We're right. It's got a
That's
space in the middle.
These guys are on it.
It's perfect. We should do it.
Okay. Next is new business then, the RFP for engineering services, the trail. Glenn, you want to give a brief synopsis to the council on this?
Right. Yeah. This is the project we're working. This is the Elm Street project. This is when we got the transportation enhancement grant on last year. So it'll begin this year. Of course, we need a. This is for the other section we just got awarded. So we sent out an RFP for engineering services on that, and this is we got 2. We got Bartlett West, who submitted a pretty strong application, as well as BG Consultants, so we've worked with much in the past. So Ed and I looked at both of those and just comparing them side by side, apples to apples, and given the qualifications and the cost, I think BG is our recommendation. They come in lower cost, and really their qualifications are just as good as anybody's. They're familiar with the project, and so there's no reason not to go with them on this, put it that way. So that's our recommendation.
Are there any questions or comments from the council?
So what's the timing of this grant? I mean, we're kind of in the middle of a situation that we don't even know when the end is in sight. I mean, is there deadlines to use these funds, and what's the city's share of this expense? So just trying to figure out if delaying makes sense just till we know more, or if that doesn't help us from a city expense perspective either way.
No, it really wouldn't. I mean, it's our cost for the project, so I think it's around 80 or around 20%. The state's picking up 80% on that. So, the funds are, well, we're doing this in 3 phases right now on this. And so it really wouldn't help us you really have to spend it within their timeline. And they'll give us some leeway on that, but not a lot. I mean, their incentive is always to get the money spent and the project done as quick as they can. So from their perspective, the money really comes from the federal government through us. The money's sitting there, so that's not in question. It's just getting this thing moving forward. So that's really it. So, we're starting this year's leg of it, and then of course next year we'll start the next phase of it. So it's a multi-year project.
I understand. I just want to understand what our options are. There's 20% burden to the city, payable, I assume, as we use the grant, the 80% grant amount. So
yeah, correct.
I certainly don't want to lose it. And if that's a potential, that's another reason maybe to move. But just, anything we're doing here that is elective, and, this is somewhat elective, it's not something that we have to do to maintain city business. So I just think we need to think about, does it make sense to delay? I don't even know, a month, 2 months, to see where this thing, better idea where this pandemic's going to end up from a city impact perspective. And those are just thoughts that I have whenever we see, something like this about moving forward on a project. Does it make sense right now?
I guess I'd say, Scott, I understand where you're coming from. However, this money's bonded for sidewalks already. The intent 2.5 years ago was right after we lost our school buses to get these in as soon as possible to help our children get to schools. What we're seeing from these grants, obviously, is it's taken over a year just to get started on the construction of it. So, I would support going ahead and moving forward so that way we can get this accomplished and get it completed. But that's just my opinion.
I appreciate that. So I'm assuming it's already in the current 2020 budget. It's already funded, or at least budgeted, for this phase 2 portion, city portion, correct?
Correct. When we bonded that money for sidewalks, we laid it all out, and it included this grant, our matching on these grants. So it was already budgeted and planned for a couple years ago for all the sidewalk projects. Like I've said, these grants allowed us to bond $1 million, but get over $2.5 million worth of sidewalks installed in the community. And they're all along our major corridors.
Right.
To help our children get to school was all the intent behind it all.
Yeah, if things were normal, easy call, but they're not. So I'm just exploring, waiting until we figure out where we're going to land in this, with this pandemic. But so what is it's budgeted. I get it. Probably can't be used for anything else anyway, but certainly could be delayed. So I may be the only one thinking that way. That's fine. What's the amount in the budget for this year for this line item? Do we know offhand?
Glenn, I think that this one, how much was this project total? The total project?
I forget off the top of my head how much the total project that was actually estimated at. And that's always an estimate because we estimate, and this is part of the process getting out to bid. I forget how much, because they funded the next phase of this thing, and I'm losing actually which one is next.
Yeah.
We got phase 1 this year, and I forget, this is a little over $1 million, I believe. I forget.
Phase 1 from Baker to the school crossing was, I think, around $650 to $750, if I remember
right. All included, yeah.
Phase 2 was set like 1.2.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
I had 1.5 in my head, and our share was 300K. Those are the numbers that I thought I heard in a previous.
I believe that's
you might be right, Scott.
I'm pretty sure that's close, yeah.
Okay, I don't know what phase that was. So
I believe that's phase 2.
Okay,
that's what we're talking about.
I know, Scott. I guess to give you some perspective on this, when the council approved the High Street sidewalk project, as well as the one coming from Heritage to Baker that's working now, we mapped it all out, including these grants, to make sure that we had enough funding under that $1 million to cover our 20%, as well as that High Street one and the Heritage sidewalk, to make sure that the funding was there and sufficient.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that input.
So do we have time to look at it? So if we need 2 more weeks, if finance committee wants to take a gander at what's going on, would that by any way penalize us on this grant, or do we have to have this in?
Yeah, it'll just slow down the bid process. I mean, is what you do, slow down the engineering of it. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Okay.
Well, I think the only thing I would suggest the council consider is, and we've had some initial conversation around what do we think, from a revenue perspective that, that this pandemic's going to do to the city in 2021. I mean, if you put some thought around that, if we think we're going to be held fairly harmless around our revenue streams, and our 2021 budget ought to be fairly close to 2020, then it's less of a concern about moving forward with projects that are on the plate to do. If we think there's potential for a significant budget revenue decrease next year, then I think it's hey, do we want to slow down here and wait to see? That would be the only analysis I would say we need to do, and that may be just a quick conversation around, do we project property tax to go up or down? What do we project sales tax? I mean, we can look at our revenue streams and make some assessment based on what we know about what's going on right now and how long we think it's going to last. But probably come to the same conclusion that moving forward on this probably isn't going to significantly impact what we do in 2021.
So, yeah, you're right, Scott. I think that this $1 million bond, we're starting to pay already since we're spending the funds. It's already sitting in our bank account for sidewalks. The cost of the city is roughly, Glenn can correct me, $65,000, $65,000 to $70,000 per $1 million bonded.
Right. That's correct.
And so that. You're right. I understand what you're saying with the pandemic and everything. But yeah, I mean, our projections for our ad valorem taxes will come out in early June. I think last year projections were that it was going to go up from 3 to 5% because the pandemic wasn't here, and it's based off of what the property values are January 1st of this year. So I still think that's going to be accurate. But if you guys want to take another look, I mean, I'm more than happy to bring it back to the next meeting. I just, a month or two, I wouldn't recommend that because I think that just pushes the project.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, is there, I'm just trying to get in front of everybody so we all at least have thought through it. Even if we move forward tonight, I'm good with it. Just want to make sure we've all thought about it. I mean, is there any inkling of the state not being able to pay, future, revenues, on time when owed, just based on what may happen to state revenue? Is there any risk in that? Because we'll get caught up in that.
Okay, which revenues are you talking about?
Talking about funding the grant that we've been awarded from the state.
The grant itself?
Yeah.
No, it's
both. That and just the tax receipt payments, any sales tax, anything that we get revenue from the state. Any chance of those being delayed?
Okay, the only revenue we get from the state straight from them would be a gas tax, and that's about it. They don't really do any more alcohol tax would be only. Otherwise, the state does not transfer any of their revenue to us at all. They stopped that about 20 years ago. So whatever they see in a shortfall for the state, really, I mean, they cut that all the recession in the early 2000s. So there really isn't anything to really fund other than gas tax and pass through the alcohol. That's all they do. So we don't really get it. We don't share in any other revenue from the state.
Okay, good. Appreciate that.
Scott, I think you're onto something, whether it's about this particular project or not, but it might be a good thing for us to have some sort of a work session where we try to look into the future. I don't even know if you can do that right now, but if that's something that the council would be interested in doing, I think it would be good for us to take a look at what we think will happen.
So, yeah, Brian, and you're right. The finance committee has been talking about that and talking about what the impact of this pandemic might be in our community, in our government. And we are going to be having a finance work session at the end of May.
Good.
Was decided, and I believe it's on the agenda already.
Okay.
So what we're approving tonight, though, is just the expense for the engineering phase of this service.
Yeah, that's correct. Right.
Yeah. I mean, so, and that's trying to see the amount there. So I guess there's still decision points made after that around funding, you know, the actual construction piece, right?
There are, yeah,
There's-
right. The proposal submitted by BG, which we're recommending, is 97,500.
But he's saying, would we have another approval point on the sidewalks after this?
Yes, because then you get the design and then we bid it out, and so when we get to that stage, then you'd approve all the whatever bids we get, just like any other construction project.
So we would have another decision point if things look, you know, if we have a clear line into things looking more difficult, then we could certainly slow it at that point. We'll have, you know, pay the expense for the design services, but we don't necessarily have to move forward with construction at that time. So
Right, yeah, there's not an obligation to do that. That's correct.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Scott, I understand your point, and your concerns are definitely valid, but yeah, I think with us having another opportunity to slow this if need be after we analyze what the financial impact might be to the city, I'd love to be able to move forward on this. Having been on the front end of this planning, and with the motivation being, you know, kids being able to walk to school safely, I'd like to move forward with this as soon as possible.
Any other questions or comments?
Nope. I appreciate everybody's feedback, and I'm good with moving forward with this phase.
Okay, with that said, then I'm going to make a motion. I move we accept the bid from BG Consultants in the amount of $97,500 for engineering design services for Maple Leaf Trail.
This is Brian. I'll second.
Susan moved, Brian seconded. Laura, can you call the roll?
Constantinescu,
Yes.
Cramer,
Yes.
Lauridsen,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Venable.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, council committee reports, budget and finance. Scott.
Okay, let me pull up my notes here. Make sure I'm off mute. So we've met. Probably the next thing we need to bring to the council. We've discussed the Senior Wheels program needing to plan for their next vehicle. Their current one is, you know, 8+ years old, and you know, maintenance is starting to become an issue. So what we would like to do is bring to the council in the next meeting, if not the next one, then the following one, just an option to look at status quo of keeping the, you know, Senior Wheels program in the county and what the city portion of that would be for a new vehicle and how that would work, and contrast that with an option of getting the moving the program into a 501c3 nonprofit entity that would be controlled by the city, and just compare and contrast those for the council to decide, you know, how they want to support this program, with really the next expense being a new vehicle, probably sometime in the second half of this year. And then any questions about that before I move on? Or Cory, you have anything to add, or Casey, or?
No, I think you did a great job. Great synopsis of it.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, and then the other piece we've been spending quite a bit of time on is the Budget IQ project. We reviewed more budget format information from Baker Tilly that has actual city data in it, and the plan, and we also set the 2021 budget planning calendar. And so the next full council step in that process is a planned budget work session on May 26th at 7 p.m. And Laura will yell at me if I got that wrong.
Oh,
but
you got it.
the intent of that is to bring Baker Tilly in and really walk through the new format. You know, it's a 5-year view. Really walk through what's in there and how, you know, how it's been put together, and then at least at a high level, on the high level, cost expense line items, talk about what those are and how they relate, talk about the, capital expenditures and what we're bonded out. So really kind of hopefully get the council pretty much up to the same speed about current 2020 budget, how we look at it, how the cities looks at it, how Glenn and the city staff are going to use that format. And then what that will feed into is hopefully better discussion around, 2021 budget priorities, where, would love to have some strategic planning done before the budget's hearings due, but at least allow us to talk about budget line items, current, future, and what impact that would have on reserve funds, and just really, I think, hopefully get the council all on the same page about how this thing works and the levers that we can pull, what we can do to increase revenue budgets, decrease it, what areas. So that's the plan, next meeting, 5/26. And then we've got a process of, how are we going to pull together what the city staff department heads are proposing for 2021, bring that to the council, have the discussion around priorities, and really try to get to the 2021 budget. Budget hearing is and approval due by August 25th. So we'll have several work sessions in there, and obviously multiple council meetings where we can talk about what that 2021 budget needs to look like. Any questions about that?
I will piggyback off that, Scott. So for Brian and Susan, this is going to look different than the budget that you guys saw last time. Previously we had asked for like a profit and loss style budget, and that's what this is going to be that we're going to see from Baker Tilly. So I just want, so that way it doesn't surprise you too, from the drastic change of what you're used to seeing the last 2 years.
Yeah, hopefully it's a pleasant surprise.
Sounds good.
I'm sure it will be.
We're really pressing to make it easily understandable by the citizens and everybody. That's not easy to do, and Baker Tilly's been doing a great job working with Glenn and the staff and getting that done. So I think everybody's going to like it. We'll all understand it better, and we'll have better discussion going forward. So look, I think that's on the calendar already. Should be for that budget work session, and then our next Budget and Finance Committee meeting is this Friday at 7:45 a.m.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Done. Yep.
Community Development, Susan.
We met on the 27th, and we just had a short meeting, discussed benches. So obviously more to come on that. Just lots of little things left on Sullivan Square. If you guys haven't been down there, you definitely should go take a look around. I can't wait to see it finally have people in it. Also, as far as Bauer Building, I submitted a 3D tour of the building and the plans with all the revisions made from the advisory committee to SHPO. And they came back with several comments, items like flooring, for instance, that are considered character defining, things that we need to take into consideration as we move forward. So I'll be working on setting a date up with the advisory committee to kind of regroup and go over those comments. Other than that, I think that's it. CDC meets again. It was scheduled for the 25th, which Laura pointed out to me today is actually Memorial Day. So I was going to move it to June 1st, the following Monday.
And I'll piggyback on that, Susan. What we'll probably do after you meet with your advisory board the next time is let them come in front of the council and in a work session and just kind of explain to the council what we did at last year as far as community involvement, and then what kind of how their decision process comes, just so we can get a full understanding for everybody on that. But I would say that will probably be into June, July, sometime.
Yeah.
With the budget process coming up.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Public Safety, Cory.
No updates here. We have our meeting set for May 12th at 4 p.m.
Thank you. Public Works and Utilities, Brian.
Okay, we met on April 23rd and we discussed Rural Water District number 1 out of Franklin County has contacted our staff with a plan to do a 2-mile extension that would go through our territory. So staff is compiling more info on that. Obviously, we can, as a council, allow them to do this. We can decline, but the committee was really leaning towards a franchise agreement of some sort that we'd like to bring before the council in the near future when that's complete. We also talked about the East Interceptor, the bids going out on that. First Street is, I think, complete now, but it was nearing completion. I'm not sure if people are actually driving on it yet, but it was nearing that. Staff have been working on the swimming pool, doing maintenance on that. And we also talked about Sullivan Square, no pet signs going up, and then talking about keys and master sets for that. Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to meet in person with committees now, or are we still doing Zoom?
No, you are. Yeah, part of my comments will be to address some of that. But
I don't have a date then yet, but I will send one out as soon as we come up with that.
Well, I got a request here I was talking with Rob today, and he's heard back from the Rural Water folks. They would like to meet us on the 21st, if we can accommodate that, to talk about that line extension. That's the date works for them apparently. So maybe kind of keep that in mind and see if we can do that. Okay, we will work that out.
is that good, Brian?
Yeah, thanks.
Legislative Committee, Julie.
I don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. City Administrator, staff comments? Anything?
I'm waiting for this pandemic to end.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Any council comments?
Phase 1.
The only comments I'll make is we are planning on the next council meeting to start meeting in person again. Probably be similar to when we started coming into this. We'll probably gradually move into that. We'll follow all the CDC and the state guidelines on that, but our intent is at the next meeting to go ahead and meet in person at the library and follow all the rules at that point that have been set forth. So, and same way with committees, you'll just want to, obviously on your committees, if you guys so choose to meet in person, just follow the guidelines, the CDC guidelines, and the amount of people in the rooms and such. So. Next, executive session. There is a request for an executive session tonight. I can get a motion for that one. Let's see how this works on Zoom.
Hey, it's written out twice.
I move we recess into executive session for consultation with our attorney for the city of Baldwin City, privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319 with the city attorney, Blake Glover, city administrator, Glenn Rodden, city clerk, Laura Hartman, and resume the Zoom meeting at...
How long do you need, Glenn?
It's probably, Blake, I'm going to say 15 minutes.
He said, yeah, that sounds good.
I think
that sounds good. Give us a little bit of time so that we can all make sure we get in there.
Let's come back at then. Julie, does that work?
Yeah, that's great.
What time?
8 o'clock back in regular session. That gives us a couple minutes on each side to.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second. Cory.
Seconded. Laura, can you call the roll?
Constantinescu.
Yes.
Cramer.
Aye.
Lauridsen.
Yes.
Pitts.
Yes.
Venable.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now be sure you leave this meeting.
Join the other one.
Got it.
And I'm-
Woohoo.